Hello, Bravo bosses, and welcome to the Bravo Investigator podcast with me, your host, Dana. Today on our Monday reality roundup, we are talking about Perfect Match, Teen Mom, The Valley, The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, Summer House, Real Housewives of New Jersey, and The Real Housewives of OC. Let's get into it. Happy Monday, everyone. I hope everyone had a great week and weekend. I'm really excited to be joining you guys on this beautiful Monday, especially because, we need to do our reality roundup. We have to do it. And I'm here to give it to you. So I'm excited to be here. And remember that you can watch all of my Monday episodes on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. So go subscribe over there. All my other episodes are audio only, and you can find those wherever you get your podcasts. And also remember that I have the Patreon now, so you can join that at patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator podcast. It's $5 a month for 4 extra episodes, ad-free episodes, and early episodes. So honestly, check it out. We're having such a fun time in there. Right now, I'm recapping Love Island Beyond the Villa. Before that, I did Next Gen NYC, the whole first season. And before that, I did Honestly Cavallari, the headline tour. So I'm thinking about doing The Hunting Wives because that show is so fucking wild. Did you guys watch this on Netflix? I watched it twice. It's like wild and crazy and sexual and weird. It's so many things. I definitely want to talk about it. And then after that, I think I'm going to do Vanderpump Rules rewind from the beginning, like starting at season 1 and just recapping episode after episode, because there's nothing this girl loves more than Vanderpump Rules. So I think Vanderpump Rules from the beginning might be like a fun challenge for the Patreon. So I'm excited about it. But if you didn't catch last week's episode, here's what you missed. It was Perfect Match, recapping episodes 1 to 6 with Ashley Vera and Ricky Valero. And then on Sunday, I did a recap of The Real Housewives of OC and The Real Housewives of Miami. Now, I know I still owe you guys a recap of the Valley reunion part 2. And as you guys know, the fandom is just getting really rabid out there when it comes to the Valley, and the show has become like not as much fun to discuss. And listen, I do agree with you guys about Janet adjacent. Like, trust me, I do agree. I'm just trying to find a way to articulate it in a really comprehensive way that I feel like will make sense to the public. So what I think I'm going to do is wait until the reunion part 3 airs this week, and then I'm just going to double up those episodes and talk about pretty much the reunions in total. And then I'll probably do an end of season deep dive with my friend Yana Firestone, who is a friend of show. And I think that'll be a really great way to round out that season of the show, which is crazy to think that they're pretty much starting to film season 3 now. So anyways, let's get into our topics for today. And we're starting with Perfect Match because, as I said last week, we did episodes 1 to 6, but this past Friday, they aired episodes 7 to 9. And I was telling you guys last week how into this show I was, and I was just so obsessed watching all of our favorite reality stars from like so many different realms. Like you've got The Bachelor, you've got Siesta Key, you've got Too Hot to Handle, Love is Blind UK. But this drop of episodes I wasn't as impressed with, like, I'll be honest with you. So, AD and Olly are on this, and we love them, and we know that they are now pregnant and engaged. So watching them back has been, an exercise in just watching the beauty of their relationship, or so I thought. How it turned out is a lot different than, I don't know, than I guess this beautiful image we had in our heads, because, she ends up having to leave in like episode, I don't know, 5 or 6, because that's like the rules of the game. Nick Lachey says like, okay, in order to find your perfect match, AD has to leave and Freddy had to leave, which made Madison really upset. And then right before we got this next drop of episodes, it ended with there being like a mixer for the guys and the girls, sort of like a Casa Amor situation, and AD returns. So Olly is like happy to see her, but he knows he done fucked up, right? So she asked him, like in this drop of episodes, what happened with you and Justine? Did you guys cuddle? Did you guys kiss? And he denied both, which he did. Like he did those things. So I was just like, wait, is she not going to find out about this until the episodes air, which is a year and a half later while she's pregnant? But no, thank God he does tell her. But he basically like, it's like forced out of him. And she's like, you don't understand disrespect. Like, how dare you do that to me? How can you lie to me? How do you expect me to trust you? Then he ends up getting mad at her later in the drop of episodes for like laughing too loud with like some guy, which is so like reminiscent of like Daniel and Lucy in the first drop of episodes, because that motherfucker got mad at her for laughing too hard with a guy. But Olly's doing the same thing. Like the way Olly is, from what we know of him from like this show, I guess, He is, he's a lover, but he's very possessive and jealous. So, he even got like a little upset when AD was going to go on a date before, even though like it wasn't her choice. And now he's upset that, listen, you had your time with somebody else and you lied to her about it. If she wants to, ruffle your feathers a little bit and laugh with a guy, laugh a little hard with a guy, let her. If that's the worst thing she's going to do to you, let her after what you've done to her. So that's basically how the two of them end in this drop of episodes, which makes me really question like, how did we get to where we are now? There's going to be one more episode, which is the finale. And yes, there's still flies in here. My apologies. I have tried to get rid of most of them, but there's still a couple left. So yeah, we only have one finale episode left, and it's when we determine who is the perfect match. And even if it is AD and Olly, yeah, I just want to know how we got from there to here. Now, listen, it's been a year and a half, like I said, engaged, pregnant, so much has happened. And we only saw this very small snippet of their relationship, which isn't really in a conventional way, right? Like, you don't typically meet someone while dating a bunch of other people and then being told that you have to leave and then being brought back and then being told you have to leave and then being brought back and then not being able to talk about it for a year. Like, none of these things are sort of normal. So I want to give like Olly a little bit of the benefit of the doubt and maybe assume that it's the way he's acting is more so like the circumstances that he's in. Because if you think about these types of environments, they are a social experiment. Like even the Ultimatum Queer Love, that entire thing was filmed in Miami in like a bubble. Like basically the people who didn't work from home couldn't work, and then you're living in this like fake apartment with a fake wife and then your real wife, but like away from home, you're not living in your home. And so like they're same with Love Island. So all of these things are sort of like these weird social experiments in that way where you're not in your normal circumstance, you're not in your normal home, you're not in your normal rules, you're not around the people you would normally be around. And so maybe he didn't adapt well to the circumstance. Like, listen, I am not defending him for lying to her whatsoever. I'm just trying to find a way to make this guy a good guy for RAD because, again, she's pregnant. So I just want to hope that he's like amazing and that this was just like a little blip, at the beginning of their relationship, just a little blip. That's my hope. Okay. And then Madison and Freddy reconnect. They're super all into each other. I don't know if they're still together now. And like the way this films is so interesting. We talked about it last week and a little bit just now about how long ago it films. And I think that Madison's season of Love is Blind, which was the last one, it definitely didn't air by the time Perfect Match started filming. So Madison didn't have her edit, because she was kind of like a bad girl in that edit. And like Freddie lives in the UK, and have they been trying to like hide their relationship this whole time? Like, who knows if they're still together? I mean, I really doubt it. And then we have Louis and Sandy. Lewis? Is it Lewis or Louis? I keep forgetting. Let's call him Lewis. So Lewis Russell and Sandy, like he's 23, she's 28, but she's really, her feelings for him have really grown during this whole time. But then she ends up, having issues with him because he kissed two people in a dare and like, she's rightfully pissed. But then he's also acting like he can't like say no to a dare, which is ridiculous. Like he's saying like, well, it was a dare. It's like, it was a challenge. It was a challenge. Like I'm being here with Love Island, right? It's just like, okay, but that doesn't mean you have to like give into it or you have to like go so hard at, especially a dare, right? Like a dare. When they were doing this truth or dare game, it wasn't like a show required game, like a kissing challenge or a bucket of slime challenge. This was literally just, I don't even remember who said it. Someone said, I dare you to do X, just like another cast member. So you didn't actually have to do it. So Sandy, yeah, like rightfully pissed. But what pisses me off the most is that like Lewis is like, I don't regret it. Then later, Sandy's like, yeah, he's good at manipulating, but like, I also feel like, by him saying that he self sabotages himself, I feel like I should be lucky to have someone like him because, he's showing me a side of himself that he doesn't show everyone. Okay, girl. Okay, girl. I mean, listen, we know they're not together because we know that he's with Huda right now. But like, Sandy, you're so fucking cool. This guy is a child, like literally man child. And the fact that he continues to try to defend it as opposed to apologize is what really pisses me off. Then we also have strife between Daniel and Lucy. So we saw them in that first batch of episodes, like couple up really fast. But then, oh, and remember, Lucy's from Too Hot to Handle. Daniel is from Dated and Related, which is literally just the weirdest name for a show. And he came off extremely controlling in that batch of episodes. He was like, "You're laughing too much with a guy. You're embarrassing me by like going too hard in the kissing challenge." It's just ridiculous kinds of things. And then he has the audacity during the guys a mixer to be like licking Olivia's thigh and be doing like all this, truth or dare stuff and how he flirted hardcore with Juliet. And then, yeah, kissing Olivia. So Lucy, again, rightfully so, is upset. He tells Lucy it didn't mean anything, and like the things that we hear from these men during these episodes is just it's just really funny. Like you have time to come up with something, and the best you can come up with is like, "I was thinking of you the whole time," or like, "It didn't mean anything," or like, "I regret everything I've ever done." I don't know, guys. I don't know. Listen, these people are being put in a very temptation sort of situation, and that's not to defend anything. It's just, I think that Daniel and Lucy are probably not a good match anyways, because I think Daniel is a piece of shit. And, he's made her cry several times during this whole experience, basically. So I'm actually kind of glad that this happened for Lucy's sake, because I think this guy is just such a piece of shit. We do have Clayton come back and everyone else. So Juliet comes back. Juliet ends up kind of like pairing up with Scott because they're both a little bit toxic. And I forget who she ends up with like later on because Scott gets mad at her. Maybe it was Carrington again. I don't remember. I think it might have been Carrington. I watched these episodes a couple times. I'm not really going to get into like all of the who's with who because it's like not that relevant. I just sort of wanted to talk about the bigger couples and like the ones we care about. And our girl Rachel ends up with this guy Ray, who I think is from Love Island that I don't remember. And she does seem like into him. He's from New Jersey and they have like a lot in common. And I think it's really funny that their names are like Ray and Rachel because their celebrity name would just be like Rachel. Rachel, you know? It's easy. It's just Rachel. So I'm happy for her and I want like the best for this girl, I swear to God. I feel like she's been through so much, like between Clayton and being on The Bachelorette herself and just being through like just so many of like these circumstances. I just really feel for this girl, but I'm just so impressed with her ability to just compartmentalize and move on and be like sunny and bright in each of these situations because look, I don't think I could. I don't think I could be as positive as she's being. She goes into every date and every circumstance or every conversation with openness and brightness and lightness and like willingness to try. While I feel like a lot of people would feel really sort of beaten down by the process or sort of what's the word? Like yeah, like exhausted by it or like you don't really want to try as hard because you've been through this dating game over and over and over again, but like she'll go on a date, she'll meet someone new, and she's light and bright and sunny and open and ready to try. And I just love that for her. But what I don't love is the way Clayton was actually speaking about her in the media this past week. So even though the whole Clayton and Rachel thing that we saw play out on Perfect Match in the first drop of the episodes was completely fucking wild, where he says, "It must be fate that you're here. We have to match. We have to. My intuition is telling me so. It's the screensaver on my phone, so I have to do it. It's my intuition." 24 hours later, you know what? I changed my mind. My intuition is wrong. And, maybe we shouldn't be together. And so she freaks out, rightfully so, because she's like, how can you do this to me for the third fucking time? Now, he was on the Bio Files this past week and he didn't do great. I'll be honest. Like, listen, I have my mixed feelings about Clayton. Obviously, on The Bachelor, he did not do great. He was incredibly honest with a bunch of women in a way that hurt all of them. And then he tried to rectify his, situation by being more and more honest. Then he had that weird paternity scandal, which I talked a lot about last week. And, I really, really felt for him in that situation. And I guess because of that, it sort of like redeemed himself in my eyes. Like I was actually like into his dancing videos online and I was really feeling for someone who was being so dicked around for something they didn't even do. Then he gets this other chance to, meet someone on this show and I feel like he done fucked up again. He keeps thinking he's doing the right thing by being I don't know, by continuing to say he's following his intuition, he's doing the best he can, he's trying his hardest. But I feel like maybe he needs to spend more time inside his own thoughts before he communicates them out loud. By that, I mean, maybe he should have sat with his thoughts more about Rachel and whether that was a perfect match and whether that was someone he should have matched with before he approached her about it. Maybe he should have sat with it for like a whole night and been like, is this the right thing to do? Because if this doesn't work out, it's going to be very, very unfair to her. So maybe I need to make absolute sure this is what I want to do before I want to do it. Kind of my thoughts. So he goes on the bio files and, he tries to talk about the situation. And yeah, he just sort of kept putting his foot in his mouth. It was very odd because basically he said that he thought that Rachel's reaction was over the top, which I disagree because, dude, you were like almost engaged to be married. You asked her father's hand, like you asked for her father's permission. So how can you literally say that her like kind of freaking out like that wasn't warranted? You dumped her on TV 3 times. So I think it is warranted. Then he also said he was very careful to make sure that he didn't give her false hope and that he wasn't physical with her and that all they did is cuddle and that's it. I would still think that that meant something, you know, being physical in that way. Like I don't cuddle with like anyone else but my dog, right? Right. I'm not cuddling with my buddy. So I would definitely take it as something. And then he said that basically the reason that he doesn't want to be with her has something to do with her lifestyle, but he doesn't want to say what it is. And then he said it's something that she'll find out in time and that he doesn't want to tell her what it is because he thinks she won't take it well. Now that is a can of worms. Like, dude, what? What do you even mean? Is she on drugs? Does she have like unprotected sex? Like, what is it about her lifestyle that she will find out in time is something that isn't great and that you won't tell her about because it'll offend her? Like, I literally, it could be so many insane things. Does she love to jump out of planes? Is it where she lives? Is it how she dresses? I know I'm saying insane things, but I literally don't know what he's talking about. What is it about her? And while he's trying to be, um, what's the word? He's trying to be diplomatic and not say it, but the more he's being cryptic, the more he seems like he's talking shit about her. He really does. Because if someone said about me, like, I don't want to be with them because of something about them, but it would offend them if I told them what it was, I'd be like, listen, that is the reason most people break up with me. It is something about me, but I don't know what it is. And like, it's wildly offensive to basically say that there's something about you I find so awful that I couldn't be with you for, and that if I told you, you'd be really offended. And then he ended up apparently blocking her on Instagram after she appeared. No, after the show aired, I guess. And when Nick Vile and Natalie asked him why he blocked her, he said it was because of something she said on the show after it aired. Like he thought they were good with the show. They even all like hung out after filming and stuff. So he thought that they were good. But then he saw something that she said on the show and it was like minor. It was just like, Clayton, I just want somebody who like knows what they're doing or knows what they want. And Clayton isn't one of those people. That's not that offensive, man. They're going to block her for that, right? So now, if you think about it, maybe the thing about her lifestyle is actually super minor considering he blocked her for almost no reason. So, I mean, again, whatever. Like Clayton and Rachel do not have to have a friendship or relationship, obviously, at all. And we obviously wish the best for Rachel. I don't know if she's with Ray now. I don't know if she's with anyone from the show. I hope she's happy. That's all I sort of hope for her. And I sort of sit there and be like, oh, I just wish there was a show where it could be all about her and she could be like the Bachelorette. Oh, right. We did that. We did that. But what sucked for her in that regard is that she had to do it with Gabby Windy, right? So it wasn't even like she was the Bachelorette fully on her own. She had to share that spotlight too. And when she was doing that, that was very complicated because there were men that had feelings for Gabby and there were men that had feelings for her. And that was sort of yeah, complicated. I don't know why they did the show that way that year. Poor Rachel. Anyways, we hope Rachel comes out on top. That is our hope. All right, let's move on to Teen Mom because we have some fun Teen Mom updates. Do you guys remember Kieffer? Kieffer, I seen you with Kieffer, Janelle, you done? So Kieffer was Janelle Evans' ex-boyfriend from a bajillion years ago. Oh God, the lore on this is so complex. I mean, so as we all know, Janelle Evans was a teen mom. She had her son Jace when she was 16. His father Andrew was not a part of his life. He moved to Florida or something. And basically, it was Janelle and her mother, Barbara. Barbara ended up taking over custody of Jace when he was a baby because Janelle was, living a crazy life. She was partying, doing drugs, just, not being safe. And so her mother asked for custody, and that ended up becoming a contentious situation for them and their relationship for many, many, many years to come. Janelle has gone on to date several other men, including David Eason, who she recently divorced. That guy is super awful. But Kieffer was someone that she dated on the show in her teenage years, and they basically did drugs together. He was in and out of jail. He was a bad dude. He wasn't great, and he sort of dragged her down and stuff. But interesting to hear that he posted an update on Instagram to show how he's been doing in his life. And he says, well, I got off the drugs 20 something months ago. I have a beautiful daughter, and I've been working my job for 2.5 months. I have a beautiful girlfriend of 3 years and a wonderful life to all the haters that doubted me. Thank you, 117. I don't know what 117 is. I don't know maybe that's how many months he's been clean. So that's amazing. Like, who would have thunk that Kieffer Delp would have turned his life around? So I seen you with Kieffer and you're not done. That's what we'll say, right? Like, good for you, Kieffer. You're not done. Now, Janelle Evans, on the other hand, she has been living her best life too. Because if you recall, Janelle Evans was obsessed with Kesha when she was younger, to the point where there was a point where she was going to be arrested, I think for drugs. And the cop said to her, like, we're going to arrest you this weekend and you're going to have to go to jail this weekend. And she was like, no, I can't go because I have tickets to the Kesha concert and I can't miss it because Kesha is like the most important thing in my life. And the cop is like, okay, well, you want to get through this, you want to put this all behind you. And do you guys remember how she actually skipped out on jail and went to the Kesha concert instead? So, fast forward a bunch of years, Janelle now goes to the Kesha concert, meets Kesha, and then makes a TikTok with her about the back and forth with the cops. So I'm going to play that for you guys because it's so funny.
I understand that the concert's important to you, but you can have all of this behind you in just a couple of weeks. Be done with it.
Like no one understands how important this concert is to me. It's not just a concert. It's Kesha. It's
just think about it.
It's the person. It's not.
That is so funny. Dreams do really come true, right? You get to meet Kesha and make a TikTok with her about the time you went to the Kesha concert instead of going to jail, right? Dreams. All right, let's move on to the Valley. You guys will not believe this crazy turn of events. Jax Taylor and Laura-Leigh have started following each other on Instagram. What a time to be alive. Now, Jax Taylor is obviously single. He is no longer with Brittany. I don't know Laura-Leigh's relationship status, but I do believe that she's single. Now, I don't believe that anyone is meant to be with Jax because he is a narcissist. He is awful. He's a terrible person. But what chaos agents would it be to have those two back together? Picture it for a second. Fucking in bathrooms, him going with her to AA, or I guess he'd be going as well, right? They could go to AA together. Remember when he dumped her right after her AA meeting? Said I still want to keep being physical with you, but not everything else. And he thought that that was a good time to do that to her right after her AA meeting. I ship this in a weird way, only just to watch it completely crash and burn. It's the kind of thing I want to watch happen online over the course of 24 hours, because that's how long it would last, obviously. If these two ever connected and hooked up again, the entire thing, relationship beginning to end, would literally happen within a 24-hour span, because these two are both so chaotic that it would begin, middle, and end very, very fucking quickly. I don't know. I think it's the craziest thing. I wonder if they'll ever contact each other or speak through the DMs. I'm very curious. And if it does, I hope they post it online, because I am just so curious what kinds of conversations those two would be having, right? In the mind of a man, Jax Taylor. Okay, so a little bit more in the Valley news. I listened to a podcast last week called Don't Let It Stew, which is hosted by Chef Stu, who's on Herd at Entertainment. He has a podcast on my network. And he had a guy named Simon Curtis on his podcast. Now, Simon Curtis used to be friends with Chef Stu 20 years ago. They were friends from the restaurant industry. And I guess Chef Stu follows Simon and noticed that Simon was posting a lot of stuff about the Valley and Zach. And he was like, oh, wait, do you know these people? And so Chef Stu had Simon on his podcast to sort of talk about the Janet of it all. So Simon Curtis is a close friend of Janet Caperna, and he's also very close friends with Ariana Madix. He did a little bit of filming of Vanderpump Rules, like in the background at the very, very tail end of Vanderpump Rules. And he filmed for a few scenes here and there in season 1 of The Valley. You may know him as Crock of Shit Boots. So that is what Zach Wickham called him in season 1 because Simon was wearing like these green Crocs. And so for the rest of the season, Zach referred to him as Crock of Shit Boots. So there was a couple pieces of interesting information that came out of this podcast that I wanted to share with you guys. So there's a couple clips that I want to play. One is about what Zach actually said about Janet that night that he went ballistic on her at Jax's. And I just want to clarify that that night, the clip that we keep seeing as being a part of this, where Michelle says, you can't stress out Janet because she could miscarry, and he says, I don't care. That's not what we're talking about here. It has been accepted and widely known and agreed upon by like everyone and their mother that after that, after cameras went down, Zach then went up to Brittany and said other stuff. And that's the stuff we're talking about. So it was my understanding that he said, I wish she had a miscarriage and I wish she had killed herself when she had the chance. So I have now seen this in many different forms via Instagram comments on other podcasts. So I'm going to play this clip for you because Simon explains exactly what his understanding was of what Zach said about Janet, and then I will give you some more information on that as well.
Janet succeeded in killing herself because she's very open that she had a suicide attempt years ago. And Lisa, she talks about, I'm not sharing anything, he hasn't talked about herself. So he started screaming that he wished she had killed herself when she tried, and that he hopes she has a miscarriage. The apology came when, because I'm sure production had to be alerted, and there were things, there were like flags going up. And so there was this canned apology that seemed like it wasn't something that he even wrote. But then right after that, it shifted to denial because Janet started discussing it. It started coming up on like different podcasts and different blogs that there was this like schism within the group and that Zach had said something. And what I found really interesting is that he sent this canned apology, but then allowed the internet to think that Janet was making this up and started just piling in, like agitating the dog pile on Janet, that she was crazy, that she was making something up, that she was like poisoning the group's mind against him, and all of these things. So what is it? Was she lying, and is the internet correct in coming for her, or did you do something that you need to apologize for?
So we all know that Zach goes crazy when he drinks. Like we saw that in the season finale of season 2, where literally all Janet did was like refuse to speak to him, and then he starts screaming like, "You're a whore." It's just kind of nuts, right? Now, I don't think that that justifies anything. I do think it makes it worse. And I do think that, like, you know, Bravo didn't end up showing that in the reunion part 2. They only ended up showing Zach saying that he said that he hopes that she miscarries. But I have it from enough other sources that he said all of those things. Like, you know, Janet had made a post where she had said, Kristen Doty, it's absolutely revolting that your BFF Zach said out loud that he was hoping I would miscarry and commit suicide this summer. All of our friends and castmates were there, or heard what he said and reached out expressing how disgusted they were by Zach's death wish upon my unborn child, except you. And then Sheena actually talked about it on her podcast too. This was a long time ago. This was in April. And she actually had to take this down because it's my understanding that this was supposed to be talked about on the reunion. So they had asked her to remove this from the internet, but that's like not how the internet works. So I'm going to play this clip as well because, you know, I just want to show how many places this quote is coming from.
And she had, I have her permission to say this, I just want to say that she had also shared that she had an attempt once to end her life, and that put her on a 72-hour hold. And for other people to use that against her and to
weaponize it like that.
Exactly. He had made comments that were not caught on camera. So people thinking that everything at the finale, like that's all he said and it wasn't that big of a deal. The comment that he made that was not caught on camera was that she should have killed herself when she had the chance. Because of what he said, it caused his best friend Brittany to distance herself from him for many, many months, like over his birthday, over the holidays.
So I do just want to point that out because, it's coming from a few different sources. And then Kristen had posted something. This was way back when this fight was happening between them all online. So this was when like Janet was saying online, like, Kristen, I think it's revolting that your best friend said this about me. And like in response, Kristen was saying, or no, sorry, this is in response to Sheena posting or talking about this on her podcast. In response to that, Kristen said, this shit trying to make us look insensitive about Janet's mental health struggles is really pissing me off. Janet had many times joked about the 5150 hold. Since Sheena decided to make it public, and they might as well make it public why she really went that night, I'll let it take it to another podcast from here. So we obviously never found out why like Janet went that night or what that means. But like, listen, I'm a person who has had suicidal ideation before. Have I joked about it? Yeah. But if somebody was yelling and screaming that like they hoped I killed myself when I had the chance and that they hoped my baby would die, like I have to be honest with you guys, I don't think I would ever speak to that person again. I feel like the only reason that they're even in each other's circles is because of the show, or I guess because of their mutual friendships. But like that's really fucking awful. I'm sorry. Like, that's so crazy, especially because I'm still not really clear on the reason he's like this angry. And then there was another clip that Simon Curtis talked about in his podcast with Chef Stu, and this was about his experiences with Danny. So you remember that Janet talked about like this second incident where apparently Danny was at like Jax's bar and there was a bunch of fans there and he was making those fans uncomfortable. But then when she said that it was Jason that heard this or saw this, Jason was like, no, that wasn't me. Brittany was like, it wasn't me either. So we're like, okay, then did anyone see or hear this? So Simon Curtis said that he did. So I'm going to play this clip and then we'll discuss what some other people have had to say in the aftermath.
Certain members of the cast were there to take pictures with fans. I was standing with Jor and we were talking with Jason. And from my side, I see, he's taking pictures with fans and you can see the hands starting to go lower and the whispering in the ear. And I remember being like, Jason, collect him. And Jason went over and intervened and grabbed him away. And I remember that was, that's one of the things that they're referencing because that was well after the Halloween incident with
So take it with whatever grain of salt you want. We don't know Simon Curtis. He's a friend of Janet's. And I know that makes a lot of people think, well, then he's not trustworthy. But take it, as whatever you want to take it. Vanderpump Rules Party, which is, a huge account. They are like the longest running like Vanderpump Rules podcast that exists, I think. They actually commented on this podcast clip of Simon saying this, and they said that they were actually there. So they said, we were there and our spot allowed for clear, close visibility to all angles except the small interior bar. Danny was friendly with us and everyone there, excited to take pictures and meet fans. He was jovial and accommodating, but not creepy, nor did we see any lines crossed any of the many times we've been there when he was also there. So that's, a direct witness saying that they didn't see anything. And then there's this other guy. He goes by the People's Champ 2284 on Instagram. He is actually a friend of the cast. His name is Ahmad, and I don't really know how he knows the cast, but I heard that he was actually in the running to film for season 3. It was between him and Jeremy Maddox, and I don't know who they picked. But, he's definitely been around for quite some time, and he definitely has a lot of information. And he said, I was there, and they were with me too, and I didn't see that, and I was talking to Danny. So again, take it for what you will. We have 2 people saying that they didn't see anything, 1 person saying that they did see something. But at the end of the day, none of these people were the people who were like allegedly made to feel uncomfortable. So if any of those people do exist and come forward, that's a very different story. But all we have here right now is just like hearsay, which, if this is a podcast, so I'm here to just give you all of the hearsay and you guys can make whatever determination you want to make in terms of who you believe. All right, let's move on to the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. And we got to start with Denise and Aaron because every day there's like a new thing going on with them. Ugh, I just feel so bad for her. So the cops were called because apparently, like, Erin tried to put down one of her dogs. So I'm going to read this article from People. It says Denise Richards and Erin Pfeiffer's had a run in with law enforcement over the weekend amid their ongoing divorce and her temporary restraining order against him. People can confirm that the Lost Hills Sheriff Police Department responded to a call at around 4:40 p.m. on Sunday, August 3rd, at the Calabasas home Pfeiffer's his parents and his brother currently live in, that she's paying for, by the way. Upon arriving at the scene, authorities did not have any evidence that a crime occurred. In a statement to People, Berman said that the 54-year-old, who was granted a TRO against Pfeiffer's after making allegations of domestic violence throughout their relationship, did not violate a restraining order by going to the property. On August 3rd, 2025, after confirming that Mr. Pfeiffer's was not present in her home, Miss Richards entered the home to retrieve her dogs after learning that Mr. Pfeiffer's had put down one of her other dogs without her knowledge or permission. However, a source close to Pfeiffer's tells People that this is 100% absolutely false. The insider further alleges that Richards was screaming and banging on the door of the home to get inside, and when Pfeiffer's heard her voice, he left through a side door. I don't live in our house, she revealed. Erin's mom and dad and his brother, they were going to stay for a few months. It's been over 3 years. I needed some space, so I rented a townhouse, and then I rented another one and another one, she continued. So I have three of them. One's an office, one's a studio, one's for Lola and Eloise, and one for us to sleep in. And then when Erin and I want privacy, we sleep in the studio. So we're all over the place. And this was like from her show. In the same episode, she and Pfeiffer's discuss their marriage, and she says that she's never getting divorced again after her tumultuous relationship with Charlie Sheen. She said, even if we hate each other, I'm not going to get fucking divorced. So, it's just such a sad situation. I bet he did put down one of her dogs. He's fucking awful. Also, she's been seen filming for The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, so that's exciting. Erica Jane spoke about it a little bit on her podcast with Teddi, just very minor, just in the sense that, like, yes, I've seen her and I feel really sad for everything that she's going through. So, you know what? Get it? Come back. We want to see you on the screen. Obviously, her show, Denise Richards and Her Wild Things, is canceled because, obviously. So we would love to see her on the screen in any way possible. And listen, we're Team Denise over here. Why not? Love to have her. Love to see it. Teddi Mellencamp, on the other hand, she has just been going through it, and she's been on this podcast that I thought was really interesting to listen to, where she really talked more so about how you can support someone during their cancer battle and how to be a good friend to them. That's sort of what the podcast was about. It was Yana Lerman or something like that. I don't remember the name of the podcast. Anyway, she was on this podcast, and I thought it was really interesting. If I find the name of it, I will link it somewhere. But in terms of, what we know about her and the Real Housewives and stuff, she talked about how she feels like, she had this affair that we know about, and she talked about feeling like cancer was the payback for the affair. And that just made me so sad because I just don't think things happen that way. And, she has been so positive and bright during this entire journey, which I have found so admirable, to be quite honest. She talks about how she has to believe she's going to live because otherwise it's too sad. And she's still been out there living. She's going on dates. She's doing all these things. And that's why I'm just so, like, impressed by, like, her zest for life and the fact that she's, like, fully still living. I'm also really impressed with Edwin, to be quite honest, because she's basically saying that, they're basically like friends. She knows that he'll always do the right thing by her. They're living in the same house right now, and, like, they're not going forward with the divorce because it's not something that she can, like, handle right now. But at the same time, he's, like, been there for her. He's been her rock. And that's just been, like, really, really amazing that she's had that. Now, I do kind of want to think he's an asshole because, he did cheat on her prior to her filming for The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I think it was, very shortly prior. They also have, I think, their three kids together. She has one step kid because he has a previous child. So, it's complicated, and they're always going to be in each other's lives because of their children together. But yeah, I just thought it was really sad for her to say that she just thought it was like payback in a sense because, oh God, honey, of course not. Like, of course not. And, like, I'm no doctor. Definitely not. But I do wonder about the timing of the affair and her brain cancer, because when you have cancer like that and it's fucking with your brain like that, your memories and your decision making is all screwed up. And I wonder if it's possible that her decision making was all skewed because of what she was undergoing before she had known that she was undergoing it. So, I'm still one of those people that would actually like to see Teddi back on the screen. I do believe that someone said they saw her filming like a little bit for the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. Who knows? But like, I wouldn't hate it. I really wouldn't hate it. Like, I know that people find her boring, but like, look at all that's been going on with her lately. And I'm not saying that she should come back because she has cancer. Like, that's crazy. But, you know, between her divorce and the affair and everything she's going through, plus just being like such a rock of a person, just such a solid person and a person who is continuing to navigate life despite their difficulties. I just think that that's admirable. And that's maybe the kind of thing we should see on Housewives, right? Like, we used to think of them as aspirational because of their wealth. But now I want to think of them as aspirational in terms of like who they are as a person. And a lot of them are not good people. And I'm not even saying that Teddi Mellencamp is necessarily a good person. I'm just really impressed with how she has handled adversity. And I think that that's something I would like to learn from her or anyone. I don't know. I'm just impressed by it. So that's why I wouldn't hate to see it. All right, let's move on to Summer House. And yeah, we have a little Summer House news. It's exciting. So we heard from Bravo and Cocktail, shout out to her, that Lindsay Hubbard might be getting a spin-off show starting September the 1st. How lucky would we be? So I don't know what it even is. Would it be Lindsay in the city? Would it be Lindsay in the Hamptons? Would it be Lindsay and her group of friends? Because listen, we know that her boyfriend, or sorry, he's not even her boyfriend anymore, her baby daddy is not going to film. We don't know if her baby can even film because she keeps saying these things online. It's the same like PR song and dance that she's doing where she talks about it and says, you know, mom is public, dad is private. What does that make baby? And I don't know what that makes baby, but you know, Lindsay actually has a lot of friends. I don't know if people know that, but like the people on Summer House aren't like her main crew. She has a lot of girlfriends. So I don't think it's crazy to have a show around Lindsay and her friends. I mean, if you think about the show that we haven't seen yet and we don't really know what it is, Stassi Says with Stassi Schroeder, from our understanding, it looks like it's going to be Stassi, Bo, Stassi's sister Georgie, Taylor Strecker, and like a few of her other friends, Low French, I think. So I I would be into a show that shows a girl in her late 30s who's a single mom, and we may not get the mom part of it, but we may get like the dating part, the friendship part, the going out in New York part, the influencer life part. I would actually really, really be into a show about Lindsay and her friends. So if that's what it is, I'm totally here for it. I'm totally here for anything that Lindsay Hubbard does, to be quite honest. So if this is real, I would be really excited about it. Then Carl Radke actually posted about his brother's anniversary today being Sunday when I'm recording. He posted in his Instagram story and wrote, just wanted to say good morning. Hard to believe 5 years have passed. Thinking of Curtis today, realizing I want people to remember him. I think that means the most to me. I love you, Mom. So I guess that's what she had written to him, and he posted that on Instagram. So as you guys remember, during their COVID season, or sorry, during their COVID season, Carl's brother Curtis passed away of a drug overdose, and he had to leave the house. And you know, he came back and had to quarantine for a bit. It was like a crazy situation, but I can't imagine like my brother dying during like a filming season where I couldn't even really leave. That was obviously a really complicated situation for him because he didn't have like the best relationship with his brother. Actually, they sort of had strife because Carl outed his brother's like drug addiction on the show previously. And that's something that, you know, has always been really hard on him, that he was never really able to make up with his brother. But it has been a part of his sobriety journey this whole time. Like, it was totally his brother's death that, you know, set him straight and forced him down the right path. So the anniversary is always during filming. Last year, I remember there was an episode about it, and it was really hard on Carl because Lindsay was normally the person that he would go to in those times. Like in all the anniversaries that he had of his brother's death, he had spent those with Lindsay. They had planted a tree in the Hamptons together the year prior. They had, you know, been, I mean, she was like the first person that he went to when he found out his brother had died, like on camera, right? So, you know, it was a difficult situation and year for him to not being able to go to the person he was closest with at the time. So, you know, very hard on Carl. And I am excited to read his book, Cake Eater, which I think is coming out later this year. I'll probably do it for Be True Hollywood Story. So stay tuned for that. Okay, let's move on to the Real Housewives of New Jersey news. And who even thought we'd have any news anytime soon? But we have a smidge. So Joe Gorga was at like a baseball game, and the fans in the back were like filming him and screaming out to him, like, "Hey, Joe, like, what's going on with New Jersey? Are you going to be back?" And he starts winking. He's like, "Yeah, yeah, Don't tell anyone. Yep, yep, or something like that. And everybody's like, wait, what? Joe Gorga's confirming they're coming back. To what though? Like, who else is on the cast? I mean, I hear there's going to be an announcement or like some sort of update, probably at BravoCon, which is, 3 months away, which makes sense because it's been over a year now since New Jersey last aired. It's like last episode. I think it's been like definitely over a year. So, we need to know what's going on with New Jersey. I heard, and now I don't even remember where I heard it, so I can't even cite the source, but I heard that Rachel and Danielle are out. Some of the other OGs might be in. I mean, I don't even want to have this conversation again about like, do we want Teresa? Do we want Melissa? Can they film together? I feel like we spent years and years and years talking about this, but I agree that they need to make a decision, like toot to sweet, because it's been too long. At some point, we're going to start forgetting New Jersey even existed. And that's just like not okay because it really is such like a firehouse power show. It was. I remember watching it years ago when I was moving during like Christmas break, and it just really keeps your attention until the last few seasons where you just fall off. And I hate when a show becomes bad because then I feel like you only remember the bad as opposed to the good. And now, like, it's sort of like with Vanderpump Rules, how it had like that shitty ending season, and like that's now how you remember it. And I almost prefer when shows end in their prime, so then you remember them like being good. Obviously, you can't do that with these shows because you don't really know how it's going to pan out until it pans out. But I'm not ready to say goodbye to New Jersey yet. I would like at least one more season. I just don't know what I want from it. But I'm here for some Joe Gorga. Yes, I don't know. All right, let's move on to the Real Housewives of OC. So we started with Gina talking on Watch What Happens Live to Andy about Heather, and she basically outs Heather for being the person who allegedly gathered all of the information about Katie's children that was aired at the reunion. So you remember that, like, what was it? Emily and Heather were really coming at Katie about the custody of her children and all of these legal issues she had. And Emily actually kind of like said to her, like, nobody loses their children unless they've done something bad. And Katie's like, I was in a facility. I couldn't be with them. I had to give up custody to make sure that they had a stable place to stay. And you could see that on Emily's face that she like felt bad because she knew she fucked up. And Heather even knew she fucked up. That's why she went up to Katie during like the break at intermission and apologized to her. But, of course, Heather has to come back in the comments to this because, she can't just let something go. So she responds to what Gina said on Watch What Happens Live. And she said, let's set the record straight. First of all, I do not research anyone. That is not my MO. I do not have time or interest to try to dig something up on other people. For the reunion last year, there were a lot of stories in the media circling about Katie, and some of us were sending them to each other because it was overwhelming and crazy. I did, in fact, send the article about Katie's custody to Emily. I did nothing more than that, and I would never have brought this up at the reunion. I actually went up to Katie during the commercial break and said to her, this must have been a very difficult time for you. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I never would have brought this up. Kids and career are off limits. Not really sure why Gina chose to include me in her response on the show or make it sound salacious, but it was not. I mean, I remember at the beginning of last season a bunch of articles being passed around about Katie's custody too. And I remember keeping them and thinking, oh, I want to come back to this. I want to address this later. And then it ends up coming up on the reunion. Yes, I do remember it happening that way because I remember there was a bunch of articles at the beginning of the season before we really knew her about her custody situation, about like even that car accident that she got into with that guy who was like chasing her down, all of that. Then I asked her to do my podcast and she said yes. And I was really jazzed because I wanted to ask her about all that legal stuff. Then I was so thankful that she ghosted me and disappeared off the face of the earth because when she went on the reunion, she was so upset about talking about her children and saying that it just was so difficult for her to even like address that situation with her ex-husband. She doesn't want to talk about it. I'm like, oh my God, thank God, because if I had her on my podcast and I had asked her those questions, it would have really, really, really upset her. So yeah, I remember having collected that information before the season and was going to ask her about it after. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I kind of believe Heather, I guess. And then Katie was on the virtual reality podcast. What's it called? Virtual reality. Yes, virtual reality podcast, which is the Page Six podcast. And so she talked about how her friendship with Jen has changed and how, last season Jen just really rode for her. And she really wished that Jen had done that for her this year. She said that Jen is not typically the type of person that is so, absent-minded or forgetful. And she's saying that in the context of like Jen continuing to say things like, well, I don't remember being there. I don't remember hearing that. So she said that, she's sad about the state of their friendship. And it is weird, right? Because like basically Jen was her only ally. So if they're no longer friends, and we also heard that Katie didn't make it to the cast trip or the final cast trip, then if she doesn't have anyone, then she's probably not coming back next year. I mean, obviously we'll have to see how this plays out later on. But from the podcast that we have listened to, it doesn't seem like anyone on the cast is talking to Katie. So unless they bring on someone for Katie, like a friend of Katie's, to be her friend for future seasons, I think she may be kind of done for. She is mad about her kids being brought up at the reunion, and she makes an interesting point about how like women should actually be celebrating each other for getting out of these bad situations as opposed to like putting each other down. In essence, she's saying Emily should have been like, good for you. Look at what you were able to accomplish out of such a shitty situation. Look at the shitty situation that you were in and that you got your kids out of. Good for you. That's what she wanted, right? And that's definitely not what she got. Katie also talked about the inappropriate video that Gretchen and Jen posted, which I don't know if you guys saw because it wasn't up for very long, but a lot of like Bravo accounts caught it. So it was basically like Gretchen and Jen like in a gym, and they were doing some sort of like, I don't know, like stupid like promotional little thing for like OC, just being like, we're gonna kick the competition. And so they start like kicking the punching bag, but then there's like this music playing in the background that's sort of like Asian music, and Gretchen is like squinting her eyes and like doing like kung fu actions, and so it was extremely like racist like offensive, obviously. So it was taken down pretty much immediately, and Katie said that it's hurtful and inappropriate. Jen was asked about it online in terms of her response, and she wrote, "I'm not racist. The second I heard the video could be taken as offensive, I removed it immediately. Gretchen and I were being silly, never an intent to hurt anyone." I mean, that isn't really an apology. Like, I'm not racist isn't really an apology. She really should have said, like, I'm sorry. Like, that the second I heard the video could be taken as offensive as opposed to it is offensive. Like, listen, I love Jen, but I think that was a bad move. Apparently, Gretchen did fully apologize, like, to Katie, so that's good. But, like, I do agree with Katie where she's saying, like, it's 2025, right? She's always been, like, the only, right? She's the only Asian in the room. She's, like, the first Asian American adoptee on this show. So she always feels like the only of everything. And she feels like in situations like this, or even on the show, it's an all too familiar feeling to be like the only and the only one. She also confirms that half of her cast are bloggers, which, like, yes, you are. And I feel like we all need to just say it and accept that, like, we can't have any more blogger storylines unless Tamara and Heather and everyone else who has a podcast is willing to admit that they are, in fact, one of us. And she says that she is writing a book because she feels like her story keeps being told for her, which is something that we frequently see on reality TV. And, I won't hate to read it because, she has a pretty interesting backstory when it comes to her marriage, her children, her adoption story. So I would definitely be interested in reading that. But yeah, I really don't think she's cut out for the Housewives because she's not great at telling the truth and she's not great at maintaining friendships. So that's okay in terms of maybe real life, but maybe just not for the show. All right, guys, well, that's the end of the show. You will see me back in a couple of days, as I said, for the Valley reunions, and then you'll see me on the weekend for the Real Housewives of Miami and Real Housewives of OC. And, if you want to follow me until then, you can do so on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. You can also check out extra content at patreon.com/the Bravo Investigator podcast. And if you want to leave me a 5-star review, I won't be mad at it. All right, well, I love you, BBs. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Bravo Investigator podcast in partnership with Hurrdat Media. You can watch full-length videos on Hurrdat Entertainment's YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at the Bravo Investigator. If you enjoy the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.